Hey guys, tonight we are going to crawl under that scratchy canvas roof of a creaking, overstuffed wagon, smell the tang of oxen sweat, and listen to the rattle of pots as your life changes forever on the Oregon Trail. Picture the sunrise burning gold over Independence, Missouri, as hundreds of wagons cluster like cattle in a stockyard, waiting to roll west. The air is alive with shouts, hammering, children crying, mothers scolding, and somewhere in there you stand, boots half-mired in mud, squinting toward a future that might just kill you. You're giddy, too, sure this is the land of promise, except you probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, post your location and local time below so we can see who else is drifting off on this dusty old trail. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You heft your last barrel of flour into the wagon while your spouse yells at you that there's no room left, and your neighbor offers a helpful suggestion you ignore. Your wagon is so full it groans, and you're already wondering if you really need that second barrel of bacon. Spoiler, you don't. Everyone is overpacking. It's human nature. This is all you own, all you can take, and no one's willing to part with the butter churn or that heavy iron stove yet. Meanwhile, you eye the oxen. They're big, slow, reliable, but they look at you with a kind of bored hatred. Historians still argue whether oxen were really better than mules, you think as you adjust the yoke. Mules are faster, more temperamental, better in mountains. Oxen are tanks on legs, stubborn but nearly unstoppable. It's a real Ford versus Chevy debate of the 1840s. Your family isn't the only one dithering. The staging area in Independence is a swirling mess. Peddlers are selling last-minute supplies you know you'll regret not buying, and others you know you'll regret buying. A man's hawking patent medicines that are basically alcohol, but hey, you buy 2 bottles. Never hurts. One fringe tidbit? Some travelers actually carried portable printing presses, determined to publish trail newspapers for morale. That's dedication to the written word, though maybe they should have packed more hardtack. It's spring. You can't leave too early or you'll hit the mountains in snow. Too late, and the desert will bake you. So here you stand, peering at the calendar, listening to self-proclaimed trail experts argue over the perfect date. Spoiler again, there isn't one. You watch one neighbor say goodbye to parents forever. No telegraphs yet, no easy way back. When you leave Independence, you're effectively dead to most folks back east. It's a one-way trip in many minds. The final day before departure is chaos. Oxen bolt, kids vanish under wagons and come out covered in tar, mothers scream, fathers swear in that PG-13, 1840s way, confound it, and someone tries to preach a farewell sermon. No one listens. You crawl under the wagon to check the axles, greasing them with animal fat to keep them from shrieking. The wagon master barks orders, trying to impose discipline on a crowd of fiercely independent settlers who hate being told what to do. It's like herding cats armed with rifles. As the night falls, you sit around the last civilized campfire, sipping weak coffee with a bit of molasses to stretch it, and you wonder if you're ready. The stars are endless above Missouri. Fireflies flicker. Your kid asks if they'll see Indians, and you say yes, but you're not sure what that'll mean. You hear distant fiddle music from another family, determined to make this an adventure. They're laughing tonight. Tomorrow they might be crying. Let's get real. The Oregon Trail wasn't for the faint of heart. The ads back east described it as a simple 6-month holiday with free land at the end. Reality? Cholera, starvation, drowning, and walking. So much walking. You'll rarely ride. Wagons break axles and kill people when they roll. Walking is safer, even for kids. That first night before departure, you try to sleep on a straw tick mattress laid on the cold ground. You're listening to your partner snoring, your kids rolling into you, and oxen bellowing in the dark. You wonder what tomorrow holds. And tomorrow, you start walking. Because come morning, the wagon master blows a horn and it's chaos again. Someone overslept. Someone else's oxen are gone. They slipped their yoke and wandered off. You curse under your breath, push the wagon out of the mud and join the long line heading west. It's slow, like you could crawl faster slow. Your boots sink in ruts already carved by wagons ahead of you. Dust cakes your nose. Kids start whining half a mile out. The sun beats down, and you try to remember why you ever thought this was a good idea. But there's also this, hope, land, a chance to own something, be someone. No landlord, nor no Eastern factory boss. Just you, your family, your patch of Oregon soil. You hear someone up front hollering that they forgot their coffee pot at the last camp. Too late, it's gone forever. People are already shedding weight. Overstuffed wagons are being stripped of everything not nailed down. Piano? Abandoned. Iron stove? Dumped in a ditch. You'll see those relics for miles, like a trail of broken dreams. Remember the man selling patent medicines? Turns out that was a good buy. Half the wagon train's sick by mile 20. Your oxen hate you. They move reluctantly at about 2 miles per hour, which means you can easily walk alongside and question every life choice you ever made. And yet, sunlight filters through cottonwoods. Wildflowers spread like carpets on the prairie. You pass herds of bison in the distance. For a moment, you breathe deep, and it's beautiful. The trail is about to get uglier, but you don't know that yet. You're too busy waving at other families, trading gossip, complaining about prices, and pretending you're ready. As night falls on your first real day of the trail, you set a fire with buffalo chips. Don't think too hard about it. Boil coffee so strong it might get up and walk away, and listen to coyotes howl. Your kid says they're scared. You put an arm around them, stare at the stars, and try to sound confident. You're on the Oregon Trail now. You're a couple of days in now, and the novelty has worn off faster than your boots. You roll out of that cramped wagon in the pre-dawn gloom, back aching, hair tangled, eyes gritty with dust. The ground is so hard you feel like you slept on a blacksmith's anvil. Everyone else looks equally dead-eyed as they emerge, blinking from tents or from beneath the wagon itself. No one says good morning in a cheery voice. You rummage through your dwindling coffee supply while the oxen look at you like they know exactly who's responsible for dragging them into this nightmare. They're not wrong. Breakfast is hard bread and maybe a strip of bacon if you didn't already throw half of it away to lighten the wagon. You chew in silence, listening to the groaning of wagons being pushed out of the mud. The air smells like manure, smoke, and sweaty people who haven't had a real bath in a week. Historians still argue whether the average emigrant was ready for this kind of travel. Many were farmers, sure, but not all. Plenty were city folk who'd never hitched an ox, never forded a river, never even cooked over an open fire. And it shows. You lash the oxen into position, feeling like an amateur dominator of beasts. They move with maximum reluctance, deliberately testing your patience. Oxen are the slow, unstoppable tanks of the trail. But they're also so stubborn, they make your in-laws look easygoing. Once you're moving, there's a kind of grim resignation. No one really rides in the wagon. That's one of those fun myths. The interior is so crammed with flour barrels, tools, clothes, and your crying toddler that there's no room. So you walk. Everyone walks. Every mile is a slow-motion obstacle course. Ruts deep enough to break an axle. Mud that threatens to swallow a wheel whole. If you're lucky, you'll hit firm ground for a while, and the oxen will get into a steady rhythm, their hooves clomping in an endless beat you'll hear in your dreams. Trail hierarchy emerges quickly. There's the wagon master, striding ahead or riding with a confidence that makes you want to trip him. He barks orders no one likes but everyone needs. There's the scout who rides out ahead looking for water or trouble. There's the grumpy old man who insists he knows a shortcut. Spoiler, he doesn't. You learn trail etiquette fast. Don't cut off other wagons. Don't let your stock stray. Don't fire guns for fun unless you want to start a stampede. But humans being humans, someone always breaks the rules. Arguments break out over right-of-way. Fights happen. One fringe tidbit? There were documented duels on the trail over whose oxen were better. Seriously. Imagine stopping your whole caravan because 2 men need to resolve which one has the superior bovine. As the day warms, so does the smell. Hundreds of animals relieve themselves on the trail, and you can't avoid stepping in it. Flies form clouds you have to wave away constantly. You try not to think about disease, but you see kids picking their noses and then grabbing food with the same hand. Lunch is usually eaten on the move, a slab of cold cornbread or jerked beef, so tough you could use it to shoe a horse. Water is ladled from barrels that were filled days ago, already tasting like stale mud. You pass discarded goods everywhere. An abandoned barrel of lard leaking into the dirt, a broken dresser missing a leg, a baby cradle cracked and left behind. It's a museum of regret strung out for hundreds of miles. You also see grave markers. Fresh dirt mounded beside the trail with crude wooden crosses. Sometimes the names are carved in, sometimes there's nothing at all. It's a quiet reminder not to get too cocky. By mid-afternoon, the sun is brutal. Shade is non-existent. Hats don't help much. You wipe sweat from your eyes and listen to your kid ask, "Are we there yet?" for the 14th time. You consider selling them to the next wagon train but realize you'd missed their complaints. There's a strange social life that forms on the trail. You're forced to make alliances with people you barely know. You share stories at night. You trade food or help fix a broken wheel. And yet you also gossip mercilessly. Who's lazy? Who's cheating on whom? Who didn't pay their share of the ferry fee last time? At camp that night, you see a woman crying by her fire. She burned the last of her coffee and snapped at her husband. The kids are cranky. The oxen ran off earlier and had to be chased for miles. Now she's wondering if she made the worst decision of her life. Meanwhile, in another circle of wagons, someone's playing a fiddle. The tune is sad, slow, but somehow comforting. A few people hum along, finding solace in the familiarity of the music. A traveler might pull out a journal and write by firelight. Today we traveled 15 miles. Wind terrible. Lizzie's sick again. Historians still argue whether these journals paint a typical experience or skew toward the dramatic, but they're often the only record we have. One man, notorious for telling tall tales, claims he shot a buffalo single-handed. Everyone nods politely. No one believes him. Your own feet are blistered. You check them before bed, wincing at the cracked skin. You know they'll only get worse. Finally, you crawl into the wagon, careful not to crush anything or anyone. The smell of unwashed bodies, wet canvas, and old food clings to everything. You listen to the wind rattling the oilcloth, the oxen lowing in the distance, someone coughing, a baby crying. You close your eyes and tell yourself you're one day closer to Oregon. Except the truth is, the trail is going to get much harder before it gets better. And you know it. You listen to your partner snoring softly, the children pressed against you, and you try to remember why you ever left home. You think about the promise of land, the hope of something better, the certainty that you can make it because you have to. Sleep comes fitfully. You dream of green valleys, of rivers you'll have to cross, of mountains rising like walls in your path. And come morning, you'll wake up, crawl out, and do it all again. Because on the Oregon Trail, the only way out is forward. You wake before dawn, because everyone does. The camp is already stirring, though no one sounds happy about it. Fires sputter to life, and the air fills with smoke, coughing, and quiet swearing that somehow feels holy out here. You shake your limbs, stiff from another night on hard ground, and try not to trip over a sleeping child or half-unpacked crate. Cooking over an open fire at this hour feels like punishment for some past sin. You fumble with kindling, blow into the embers until your face is sooty, and nurse that single precious spark into flames. The coffee is worse every day, ground with a hammer, boiled until it could strip paint. You sip it anyway, grateful. Breakfast? If you're lucky, a bit of bacon. Maybe mush if the flour's not too infested yet. Don't look too closely at what floats in the pot. You can't afford to waste anything. Historians still argue whether settlers really ate so badly every day or just wrote about the worst meals in their journals. But let's be real. This is no bed and breakfast. You burn your fingers pulling the pot from the fire. Your spouse yells at the kids to stop poking the oxen with sticks. Your neighbor, already harnessing his team, is smugly ahead of schedule. You hate him a little. Once the wagon train starts moving, The real daily grind begins. Step after step after step on rutted, dusty trails. You fall into a rhythm you'd swear is designed to hypnotize you. Walking takes up most of your day, not riding. The wagon is a rolling storehouse crammed with your life's belongings, so there's nowhere comfortable to sit, and every bump risks breaking an axle. Plus, you need to lighten the load for the oxen. Your boots, if you even have proper ones, are shredded within weeks. Some people tie rags around their feet. Others go barefoot. Ever step on a cactus? Imagine that, but daily. You share chores on the trail like you're part of a grimly cheerful dystopian commune. Someone fetches water, if you're lucky enough to find a clean stream. Someone else gathers buffalo chips to fuel the next fire. You try not to think too hard about that. Fringe tidbit, you remind yourself as you toss a few into the wagon. Some folks claimed they preferred the smell of buffalo chip smoke to regular wood. Kids have jobs too. They herd livestock, gather fuel, chase down the family mule when it bolts. Some children even drive wagons if their parents trust them enough, or if the parents are too sick to do it themselves. Lunch is whatever you can eat on the move. Cold bacon, stale bread. Some families skip it entirely to make miles before the sun is too high. You chew in silence, feeling every pebble underfoot. By midday the sun's high, turning the prairie into an oven. The dust churned up by hundreds of hooves coats your skin in a sticky, filthy crust. You can't wipe your face without making it worse. You cough constantly. When you finally stop for the evening, there's no rest. First you have to circle the wagons, part security, part corral, part social club. Then you unhitch the oxen, check them for injuries, and get them watered if there's anything left to find. You share water by the cup, careful not to spill. Then there's dinner to cook. That's a whole other ordeal. Firewood is often scarce, especially on the plains. You might burn twisted roots, dried grass, or, you guessed it, more buffalo chips. You make stew if you have enough left, or you just boil flour into gluey lumps with a bit of salt. The smell isn't exactly inviting, but everyone eats anyway. No one's picky on the trail. While you cook, you listen to the gossip of the day. Who's sick? Who's fallen behind? Who lost a wagon wheel? One family is already talking about turning back. You try to ignore it. Dinner's done? Great. Now you scrub the pot with sand to get the burnt bits off. No soap left. You scrape it until it's passable, then leave it for tomorrow's horror show. After that, you patch clothes, fix shoes, mend harnesses. The trail destroys everything. Historians note that seamstresses and blacksmiths made a killing along the way, and you see why. If you can't fix it, you do without. As dusk falls, the camp becomes quieter. Babies cry themselves out. Adults sit by the fire and watch the stars emerge. You might hear someone praying. Another family sings a hymn, the voices haunting in the cold dark. You watch your kids chase fireflies. For a moment, it's almost magical, until one of them trips over a rope and bloodies their nose. You're too tired to scold. There's still danger even now. A spark from the fire could set a wagon canvas ablaze. A startled ox might stampede. You never fully relax. One fringe anecdote? Some emigrants reported seeing eerie lights or hearing ghostly voices in the prairie at night. Whether it was exhaustion, stress, or something else, it gave plenty of travelers the creeps. You crawl into the wagon after everything's done. It's not comfortable. You lie on sacks of flour and barrels of bacon. The canvas roof drips condensation. The air is rank with sweat, food, and unwashed humanity. Your spouse curls next to you. The kids pile in, kicking in their sleep. You feel every ridge in the floor. You close your eyes and try not to think about tomorrow's miles. But you can't help it. You're counting the days, wondering how many more you'll last, wondering if you'll see Oregon at all. And in the back of your mind is the real terror. The diseases you can't see, the river crossings you'll have to make, the mountains you'll have to climb. But for now, you sleep. Because you're exhausted, you're sore, you're hungry, and tomorrow you'll do it all again. Because that's the only choice you have. You're getting used to the misery of walking all day when you see the river ahead, wide and slow and deceptively calm in the morning sun. Everyone stops. Conversation dies. The wagon master squints, chewing his lip. Because river crossings are one of the worst parts of the Oregon Trail, and you all know it. You can't just wade across with a cheerful splash. These rivers are unpredictable, with hidden currents and sudden drops. Even shallow-looking water can suck a wagon in and drown your oxen. Your group clusters on the bank, debating. Historians still argue whether ferry operators truly helped or shamelessly exploited travelers. But let's just say those men knew how to make a dollar. There's often a rickety ferry, a raft lashed from barrels and planks, crewed by folks who charge whatever they want. Your neighbor is haggling, waving his arms in frustration, and you watch the ferry operator lean on his pole, smiling. He knows you'll pay or risk drowning. Meanwhile, someone else decides to ford. They strip their wagon down to lighten it, removing everything that isn't nailed in, sometimes even the kids if they're light enough to carry across separately. The oxen are prodded forward, water swirling around their bellies. You watch, heart in your throat, as the wagon lurches. A wheel hits a hidden rock. The wagon tips. Supplies spill into the current. They're screaming. One ox breaks free and swims off. Everyone helps fish out what they can, but half the family's food is lost. Their blankets are soaked. Their spirits are crushed. Your turn. You stare at the muddy water, realizing your entire life is balanced on these wheels. You consider the ferry. It's expensive. You can't really afford it, but you can't afford not to. You cough up the fee. It's not exactly the Love Boat. The raft rocks, leaks, and creaks ominously as your oxen shift nervously. Water sloshes over the boards. You hold your breath the entire way. When you reach the other side, you want to kiss the ground. Instead, you pay the ferry operator, who smiles like he just won the lottery. Which he kind of did. One fringe tidbit? Some emigrants tried to build their own rafts by hollowing out cottonwood logs and lashing them to wagons. It worked about as well as you'd expect, hilariously badly. And for every successful crossing, there's a grave marker nearby. Simple wood, carved with a name and a date. Or sometimes just unknown. You dry your belongings in the sun, cursing the water stains on your flour barrels. You wring out blankets and lay them over bushes. Your partner picks leeches off the oxen's legs. You notice your kids playing dangerously close to the water, and you yell until they come back. They sulk but obey. They're getting used to you being mean. You're getting used to it too. Survival doesn't have a lot of room for patience. Dinner is late because the fire won't start with wet wood. You scavenge buffalo chips again, which thankfully burn even damp. The stew is watery. The bread is soggy. You eat anyway, scraping the pot clean. Around the fire, everyone's in a foul mood. People blame the ferry operators, the wagon master, the river itself. Fights nearly break out before exhaustion wins. You lie awake that night, listening to the river's hush. It seems to laugh at you. The moonlight reflects on its ripples like silver teeth. You roll over, pressing close to your spouse, feeling the damp canvas cling to your skin. Because tomorrow, you'll have to keep moving. Crossing a river is never just once. On the Oregon Trail, you'll do it over and over. The Platte, the Snake, the Columbia, all with their own dangers. And each crossing is an existential gamble. You remember the wagon that tipped today? The kid who nearly drowned? The family now crying over ruined food? Your wagon is lighter by design now. You shed more supplies before the crossing, left them on the far bank for the vultures or desperate travelers behind you. A cast-iron stove, a bureau, even a beloved rocking chair. Historians note how the trail was littered with these abandoned treasures, a museum of hopes turned impractical. The sun sets, painting the river red. You promise yourself you'll be smarter next time. Spoiler, you won't be. Because rivers don't care how clever you are. You close your eyes to the lapping sound, knowing you'll have nightmares about it. And come morning, you're up again, fire smoking, coffee boiling over. Kids fighting, oxen glaring. You don't even look back at the river. It's behind you now. Ahead, another one waits, because the trail never stops testing you. You think you're tough now? Wait until the trail itself decides to prove you wrong. Because if you thought crossing rivers was the worst part, you're in for a rude, dusty, occasionally venomous awakening. It starts with the dust. Always the dust. You wake up with your nose crusted shut, your mouth dry as old leather. You try to spit and it comes out like mud. You cough until you see stars. When you look around the wagon camp at dawn, you see everyone else hacking too. Kids wiping dust from their eyes and smearing it right back on. Your partner cursing at the flour barrel because even inside the canvas, it's filled with grit. You start walking at sunup because you have no choice. The oxen plod, heads down, tails swishing at flies that have somehow survived this apocalypse. Each footstep kicks up more dirt until you're marching through a fog of it. The wagon wheels creak and groan, their iron rims scraping ruts worn so deep you could lose a child in them. Which, incidentally, has happened. Historians still argue whether the worst injuries were from disease or accidents, but let me tell you, a wheel can break your leg without even trying. By midday, the sun's high and the trail is an oven. The dust changes color in the heat, pale tan becomes blinding white. You tie a rag over your face like an outlaw just to breathe. Your partner's eyes are bloodshot from squinting. Your kids cry because their water cup is empty again. You ration water so carefully you feel like some cruel monarch, decreeing who gets to sip and who doesn't. And the wind? Don't get me started. Out here, the wind is a living thing, and it hates you. It can be gentle one minute, blowing a few stray grass seeds around, and the next it's a dust devil the size of a wagon, sucking hats off heads and sending canvas covers billowing like ship sails. One day a storm rolls in so fast you have no chance. The sky turns yellow, then brown, then black as sin. The wind hits like a slap. Everyone dives to tie down wagons. Oxen bellow in terror. Kids scream. Your partner is shouting at you to grab the coffee pot before it flies away, because God forbid you lose that. Dust gets in your eyes, your ears, your teeth. You can't see the wagon 2 feet in front of you. You hunker down behind a wheel and pray it doesn't blow over. When it's over, the world is coated in a new layer of grime. You're coughing so hard your ribs hurt. The oxen are trembling. Your partner says, "At least it's over." You resist the urge to laugh in their face, because out here, there's always something worse. Like rattlesnakes. Oh yes, they're everywhere, even if you can't see them. You're walking along, half dead with thirst, boots falling apart, and suddenly there's that telltale rattle. Your kids freeze, you freeze. Even the oxen freeze. It's there in the grass, coiled watching you. You inch back. Someone grabs a stick, someone else says, "Don't, just leave it." But you can't. You've got to clear the trail. You smack at it, it strikes, you jump back so fast you almost sprain your ankle. Eventually, someone kills it. You bury it, or you don't. Some people cook them. Protein is protein. One fringe tidbit: some immigrants actually kept the rattles as trophies, tied to their wagons so everyone would know they were tough. Your kids beg you to keep one. You glare until they shut up. But it's not just snakes. Scorpions nest in your bedding. Spiders the size of your palm wander into your boots. Your partner shakes everything out every morning with a grim set to their jaw. They don't scream anymore. Not after that first time. You don't laugh about it either. Because last week someone got bit. Their leg turned black and swollen. There's no doctor, just laudanum if you have it. Whiskey if you don't. You watch them die. Quiet, gasping, you help dig the grave. You marked it with a cross you carved while your hands shook. Historians still debate if the real killer was violence or disease. But you know better. It was the trail itself. It was the dust you breathed until your lungs felt like raw meat. It was the water you drank that carried death invisible. It was the sun that cooked your brain inside your skull. It was the river crossings that claimed oxen and children alike. It was the rattlesnake you never saw until it was too late. It was the wheel that cracked and flipped your whole life into a ditch. It was the fire that caught a canvas cover and burned everything you owned in minutes. It was the cold that crept in at night and made babies cough until they fell silent. And it was you, because you chose this. You chose to walk west. You chose to keep going when you could have turned back. And you'll keep choosing it. Because there's nothing behind you anymore. Your partner knows it too. You see it in their eyes when you make camp at dusk, laying out damp blankets on ground as hard as iron. You watch them tend the fire with fingers so cracked they bleed. You see your kids fall asleep in each other's arms, dusty faces streaked with tears they don't even remember crying. You lie back and stare at a sky so big it could swallow you. You think about everyone who died today. You think about the graves you passed, each one a warning you ignored. You close your eyes. You tell yourself you'll be smarter tomorrow. You won't. But you'll get up. You'll tie your boots with ragged strips of old shirt. You'll harness the oxen who hate you. You'll push the wheel you patched with a green stick. You'll walk and walk because there's only one direction you can go. You're still coughing up dust when the rumor starts to spread down the line. There's a trading post ahead. A fort. A place with supplies. Actual supplies. Not the shriveled dreams in your barrel that smell like old socks and disappointment. You hear the word pass from wagon to wagon like salvation. Fort up ahead. Trading post. Maybe they have flour. Your heart actually skips. You imagine coffee you didn't have to strain through your teeth. Beans without weevils. Bacon that doesn't smell like feet. Even your partner perks up. The kids actually start asking questions instead of whining about blisters. You try not to get your hopes up. You fail. By mid-afternoon you see it, a cluster of rough cabins, a high palisade, smoke from blackened chimneys rising into the clear sky. Your eyes sting just looking at it, and not from the wind this time. Civilization. Or at least the frontier's approximation of it. The train halts in chaos. Wagons bunch up like cattle at a gate. Oxen bellow. Mules try to bolt. Kids scream with giddy excitement. Your partner smooths their hair, fusses at their shirt, tries to look like they haven't been sleeping in dirt for months. Good luck with that. You tie up your oxen in the corral with everyone else's. You hope you remember which ones are yours. They all look the same now, skeletal, sullen, and covered in fly bites. You take a deep breath and head for the post. It smells like old sweat, wet leather, and pipe smoke. It smells like hope. Inside it's chaos. Shelves crammed with goods you haven't seen in months, flour in barrels, coffee beans in sacks, tools, blankets, bullets, hard candy in bright stripes that make your kids' eyes go wide. You're not the only one salivating. Everyone's shouting, waving coins, bartering with anything they can. One woman offers a silver brooch for a sack of beans. A man argues over the price of salt so loud you think he's going to punch the clerk. Historians still argue whether these posts were saviors or predators. You look at the smirk on the trader's face and think you know the answer. You ask for coffee. He tells you the price. You try not to drop your teeth. Twice what it was in Independence. Maybe 3. You buy it anyway. Because if you don't, you'll kill someone tomorrow when you can't face the dawn without it. You watch your partner haggle over salt. Their voice shakes. You see the clerk's eyes narrow. He knows he has you. You hand over the last coins you didn't want to admit you had. He smiles. You hate him. But you thank him anyway, because you don't have a choice. Your kids beg for candy. You say no. They look at you with those big, dusty eyes and you cave so fast you'd be embarrassed if you weren't so tired. 3 sticks of candy cost enough to feed a man for 2 days. You buy them anyway. Your partner doesn't even glare. They just nod, because the kids need something. Anything. One fringe tidbit? Some trading posts sold miracle tonics that were basically whiskey, pepper, and lies. Claimed to cure everything from dysentery to snakebite. Sold out every time. You don't buy one, but you think about it. You walk out into the sunlight clutching your pathetic pile of goods. Coffee, salt, a little flour that's probably half bugs, but you'll sift it. Your partner's crying. Quietly. You don't say anything. You want to. But what can you say? You spent everything, and it's not enough. Dinner that night is better than it's been in weeks. Beans that don't taste like dirt, coffee that's almost black. You both eat slowly, savoring it. The kids fall asleep with sugar streaked on their cheeks, smiling for the first time in days. You sit by the fire, watching the smoke drift into the night sky. It feels almost normal. Someone a few wagons down is playing a fiddle. The tune is old, slow, mournful. Your partner hums along. Your eyes sting. You tell yourself it's the smoke. The next morning you see the prices painted on the trading post wall. You want to laugh. You want to burn it down. But you just hitch the oxen. You both avoid looking at each other, because you know what's ahead. Weeks more of this, of dust, of fear, of hunger, of watching your kids learn how to count by graves along the trail. But you have to go, because Oregon is out there, because you're too broke to turn back. Because you've come too far. You watch your partner pat the oxen, whispering soft threats and gentle promises all at once. You see your kids kick at the dirt, already fighting over who sits on the wagon tongue. You take one last look at the trading post. The clerk's already counting his coins. You hate him, but you also thank God he was there. Because without that flour, that salt, that coffee, you wouldn't make it. You climb up beside your partner. You take the reins. Your hands are cracked and bleeding. Your back aches like it might break. Your mouth tastes of old coffee and regret. Your partner leans into you just enough to share the weight. You flick the reins. The oxen grunt step forward. The wagon creaks. The trail waits because it always waits. Because there's only one direction. The further west you push, the less certain everything becomes. Your supplies are lighter, your oxen thinner, and your children quieter. But there's something else on your mind that keeps you awake at night. Even more than starvation, dysentery, or a busted axle. Meeting the tribes. You've heard the stories back in Missouri, haven't you? The gruesome rumors passed from mouth to mouth, growing more lurid each time. Tales of scalping, raids, theft. Savages. Your neighbor had whispered in town, shaking his head with theatrical horror. But now you're out here, and things look a little different. You see them before they see you. Usually, a cluster of riders on the horizon, dark against the shimmering heat. The wagon train slows, tension crackling like a drawn bowstring. You lick your dry lips. Your hand rests on your rifle. Your wagon master rides ahead to talk. That's what he's paid for, to negotiate, to keep everyone calm. He has a practiced smile that you bet money doesn't reach his eyes. Historians still argue whether these encounters were mostly peaceful or if the danger was as great as travelers claimed. The truth is slippery. Some travelers never saw an arrow fired in anger. Others buried friends with feathers in the dirt beside them. Today it's cautious, diplomatic. They ride closer, wrapped in blankets even in the summer heat, faces unreadable. They talk in low voices, trading words with your scout in stilted English. You watch, heart pounding. Then the goods come out. Blankets, knives, beads, sometimes horses. You see your neighbor nervously holding out a battered kettle in trade for fresh meat. You realize you're staring. You force yourself to look away, busying yourself with checking the oxen. They shift uneasily too. They're smarter than they look. Your kid whispers, "Are they going to hurt us?" And you shush them quickly. Because you don't know. You honestly don't. That night, you eat better than you have in weeks. Fresh venison from the trade. You feel relief, almost guilt. You don't talk about it out loud, but you think it. If they wanted us dead, they'd have killed us already. But you keep your rifle close. At the next stop, there's more contact. A group sets up a small market near the trail, laying out goods. Beaded work, animal skins, intricate tools. Your partner's fingers linger on a quillwork pouch, but the price is too high. You settle for a bag of dried berries instead. It's not all peaceful. One day you pass a burned wagon, its axles charred black, canvas in tatters. No bodies in sight, but you can imagine. Your wagon master says nothing, just spurs his horse forward, face set like stone. You don't ask questions. One fringe tidbit? Some emigrants actually hired tribal guides to lead them through the worst terrain. These men knew the land better than anyone alive. Without them, entire wagon trains would have died in the mountains. But that help always came at a price. Trade. Gifts. Sometimes hard bargaining that left you poorer but alive. At night around the fire, the talk turns sour. Some insist no good can come from dealing with them. Others point out the obvious. You'd be dead without their help finding water holes, safe crossings, grazing for the stock. Your partner says nothing but stares into the fire, jaw tight. You remember watching one of the men in the trading party lift your daughter's braid, admire the color. He didn't pull. He didn't smile. He just looked. And you felt cold in your bones. Because you know the price of failure out here. Still, You trade. You have to. One day you barter for directions to a water source that saves your entire train. Another time, you trade a spare hatchet for a slab of dried meat that keeps your kid from starving. Historians debate whether these encounters were fair trades or exploitation on both sides. You don't know what the history books will say about you. You just know you're trying to get your family to Oregon alive. The worst is when rumors fly through the train. Someone's wagon robbed in the night. Oxen gone. Arrows found in a tree. No one knows who did it. Accusations fly. You see fear turn into hate in people's eyes. Your wagon master tries to calm everyone to keep the powder kegs buried. But he's just one man on a horse. Meanwhile, your kid asks you again, "Will they hurt us?" And you still don't have an answer. But you lie anyway. "No," you say, voice shaking, "we're going to be fine." Because what else can you tell them? That you're walking a knife edge between cooperation and violence? That you don't know if the next group you meet will trade with you or attack you? So you keep going. Because there's no choice. You still have hundreds of miles to go. The next day, you see a small group watching you from a ridge. Motionless. Watching. Your partner squeezes your arm. You don't say a word. You keep walking. At night, you lie awake listening for hoofbeats. You promise yourself you'll stay awake. You don't. You're too tired. Because tomorrow you'll have to get up and do it all again. You'll trade. You'll negotiate. You'll fear. You'll hope. Because that's life on the trail. Because there's only one direction you can go. You don't want to think about death, but you can't help it out here. It's everywhere. It's the quiet passenger riding in every wagon, the shadows stretching across every campfire. You see it first in small ways. That neighbor kid who's been pale and coughing for days suddenly doesn't get up in the morning. The mother who holds her baby a little too tightly, rocking back and forth in the dirt while people glance away. No one wants to watch. But no one can look away. Because you know it could be you. You get up before dawn as always. There's no sleeping in on the trail. The cold air cuts like a knife. You move stiffly, checking on your oxen, feeling your joints complain. Then you see it, a crude wooden cross driven into the hard-packed earth just beyond the wagon circle. Fresh dirt mounded up, still raw and loose. Someone died in the night. No funeral. No pastor in black robes. No bell tolling. Just a hole in the ground and a board with a name if you're lucky. Sometimes not even that. Historians still argue about the true mortality rate on the Oregon Trail. Estimates vary from 4% of travelers to as high as 10%. Whatever the number, it's enough that you can't forget it. You see graves everywhere, scattered along the ruts like mile markers. You ask the wagon master once if people ever dug them deep enough to keep animals away. He just stares at you for a moment before shaking his head and riding on. You never ask again. Disease is the worst killer. Cholera is the word that makes everyone's voice drop. You don't even like saying it out loud. The Blue Death, some call it, for the color of the skin of those dying. It doesn't kill politely. It hits fast and hard. One minute you're eating dinner, the next you're doubled over in agony. Vomiting, diarrhea, dehydration, your body turning on itself. You hear the retching at night, muffled sobs. You don't get close, because you can't help them. There's no real cure. Just water, hope, prayer. One fringe tidbit. Some emigrants believed you could cure cholera by swallowing bullets. Don't try that at home. Spoiler, it didn't work. Your partner tells the kids not to drink from the river directly. You boil water when you can, but fuel is precious. Every decision is a gamble. Boil less, save wood, risk death. You see wagon trains ahead slow to a crawl because so many are sick they can't even walk. You try not to think about it as you stir your sad, thin stew over a smoky fire, watching the horizon darken with storm clouds. But it's not just disease. Accidents are constant. You watch a man get pinned under his wagon while changing a wheel. He screams until he doesn't anymore. His family stands in shock while people dig. Another day, a child falls and the wheel goes over her. You hear the crack. You never forget it. You help bury her. Everyone does. No one talks much that night. One of your oxen collapses on the trail, foaming at the mouth. Heat stroke or exhaustion, you're not sure. You try to rouse it, slap it, beg it to get up. It doesn't. You have to make the choice. Leave it for the wolves or shoot it yourself. You choose the gun. Your partner turns away, hands over their ears. The kids cry, but you can't stop. You redistribute the load among the surviving animals. You dump more of your possessions onto the trail, your wedding china, a trunk of clothes, your partner's family Bible. It hurts like losing another piece of yourself. You tell yourself Oregon will be worth it. But tonight, you're not so sure. You eat in silence. The stew tastes like ash. Someone is praying aloud for the dead. Their voice cracks. Others stare into the fire, unblinking. The wind blows dust over the new graves. You realize you've stopped asking your kids to look away. Because they have to know. Because there's no protection from it. It's part of the trail. The next morning, you see another family burying their father. The widow's face is blank, empty. Your partner whispers, how will they even get the wagon to Oregon? You both know the answer. Probably they won't, but you don't say it. You just keep moving, because that's the only choice. Your own child has a cough, a small one. But it's enough to make your heart seize. You force them to drink water. You fret over their blanket. Your partner tries to reassure you, but their eyes are wide in the firelight. You can't sleep that night. You watch the stars wheel overhead, cold and uncaring. You wonder how many people died under the same sky, whispering the same prayers. You don't want to think about it, but you can't stop. Because it's everywhere. Because you're not sure you'll survive it. Because the only way is forward. You tell yourself you'll make it. You have to. For them. For you. For the promise that waits at the end of this damned, beautiful, deadly road. Because even with all the graves, the blood, the sickness, you can't turn back. No one can. You'll bury your dead, wipe your tears, harness your oxen, and walk, and walk, and walk. Because the trail doesn't care. Because the trail only goes one way. You think you've seen all the trail can throw at you, but the weather has other ideas. It's the one thing you can't fight, can't reason with, can't bribe. It just is, and it's merciless. Morning comes cold and raw. The prairie holds the night's chill long after dawn. Your breath fogs in the pale light. You hunch your shoulders against it, pulling your patched coat tighter. You watch your kids shiver, teeth chattering. Your partner curses softly as they try to light a fire with damp buffalo chips. The smoke pours sideways in the icy wind, staining your eyes and making you cough. Breakfast is rushed, grim. Hard biscuits that crack teeth, cold bacon if you're lucky. The sun crawls higher and the cold eases, but you know it's a trick. By noon, the prairie is an oven. The wind dies and the air becomes heavy and stifling. Your hat is worthless. Sweat pours down your back in greasy rivulets. Your shirt sticks to you like glue. Your mouth feels like it's been lined with cotton. You ration water strictly. Half a cup here, a swallow there. Enough to keep your tongue from cracking. Barely. Your oxen pant like bellows. Their tongues loll out. You worry they'll drop dead in their traces. Historians still argue whether heat or cold killed more on the trail. The truth is they both did a fair job. One day it's blistering, the next you're pulling on every layer you own and still shivering. At night the temperature drops like a stone. You're huddled with your family under thin blankets, trying not to wake the baby with your shivers. The fire burns low. Fuel is too scarce to keep it roaring. You listen to the wind keening through the wagons like a ghost. Your partner breathes slow and even, feigning sleep. You can't. Your mind races with worries. Will there be water tomorrow? Will the kids make it? Will the oxen hold out? Dawn brings a new horror. Thunderheads. They rise on the horizon like mountains of angry black smoke. The wagon master calls a halt to discuss strategy. But what can you do? You're a target out here on the open plain. The wind picks up, whistling through the wheels and covers. The animals stamp and snort, scenting trouble. You rush to tie everything down. You help your partner lower the canvas flaps on the wagon. The kids are crying now, scared by the electric charge in the air. Then it hits. A wall of wind that howls like a beast. The wagons groan. Dust blinds you. You spit grit and shout instructions you can't even hear over the roar. Lightning cracks the sky. One bolt strikes so close you smell the ozone, see the oxen rear in terror. You grab the reins, hold on for dear life. The thunder hits an instant later, so loud it rattles your ribs. Rain comes in sheets, hammering the wagon cover until you think it'll split. The ground turns to instant muck, sucking at your boots. One fringe tidbit: some emigrants would literally crawl under their wagons and pray during storms. You don't blame them. You try to keep your fire going under a tarp. It fails, you're soaked through. So is your food. The kids are huddled together, wide-eyed, shivering. You wrap them in the only dry blanket left, praying it'll be enough. Your partner curses the storm, the wagon, the entire state of existence. You don't even have the energy to answer. By dawn, the storm is gone. The prairie steams under the returning sun. You climb out of the wagon stiff and sore. The fire is out. The ground is churned mud. The oxen are caked in filth but alive. You survey the damage. Flour barrels swollen and ruined. Blankets sodden, clothes streaked with mud. You have to dump more ruined food on the trail. You see your partner cry silently while you do it. Because you don't have enough left. But there's no choice. You repack what you can. You patch what you can't. You feed the kids a thin, watery mush for breakfast. It's all you have. They don't complain. That's the worst part. They've learned not to. The trail ahead is nothing but hard, sun-baked dirt that will turn back to mud at the next rain. The wagon wheels creak like they're screaming in pain. You walk because there's no room to ride, because it's safer, because it's the only way you'll get there. You think about how the wind will whip again tomorrow, how the nights will freeze. You watch the horizon for more thunderheads. Historians love to debate whether emigrants really understood the weather they'd face. You snort at the thought. How could anyone really know until you're out here, living it? You help your neighbor dig out a wagon mired to the axle in mud. You sweat and grunt and curse until your arms tremble. You accept a chunk of bread in payment. It's stale, but you eat it anyway. Your partner shares water with a family whose barrel burst in the storm. You do the math in your head. How many days will that cost you? You don't say it, because it's the right thing to do, even out here, especially out here. At camp that night, the fires burn low. No one has much to say. You hear someone singing a hymn, thin and cracked but determined. A child joins in, off-key. You close your eyes and let it wash over you. Your partner squeezes your hand. You hold on. Because what else is there? You'll sleep tonight in damp blankets. You'll wake up tomorrow and do it all again. Because the trail only goes one way. You think you're getting the hang of this whole emigrant life until the animals remind you exactly who's in charge out here. And spoiler, it's not you. Your day starts the usual way. Stumbling out of the wagon before dawn, stretching a back that's permanently bent like a question mark. You fumble with the coffee pot, your hands shaking, because without coffee you'd simply lay down and die. You squint at the oxen. They're watching you with baleful, unblinking eyes. They know it's time to work. They hate it. Your partner is already trying to yoke them up. It's a two-person job now because the animals have gotten mean. They've figured you out. They know how to dodge the yoke at the last second. One ox even managed to kick your spouse last week. The bruise was the size of a skillet. Your oldest kid is chasing a mule around the camp like a lunatic. That mule slipped its halter again. You curse its entire bloodline while you try to help. Historians still argue whether oxen or mules were the better choice. Mules are faster, more nimble, better in mountains. Oxen are stronger, cheaper, less likely to drop dead of thirst. But they're also stubborn as sin. You have both, which means you get all the problems. By the time the wagon train gets moving, everyone's already sweaty and angry. The oxen dig in their hooves at every slope. The mules try to bolt at every loud noise. The path is worse than usual today. Rocky, uneven. You have to get out and lead the oxen by the nose ring. You mumble sweet threats into their ears to keep them moving. The sun climbs high and your animals slow to a crawl. Their tongues loll. They snort and foam. You start to panic because if they drop, you're done. You ration water carefully. For you, for the kids, for them. They get more than you do. Because if they die, you die. Lunch is a grim affair. You shovel dust out of a biscuit before biting. The oxen chew what little grass they can find. One mule nearly breaks its neck trying to get at someone else's feed sack. You end up fighting with your neighbor over whose animal is whose because they've wandered into the wrong lines. It takes both families to sort it out. Tempers flare, apologies are grudging. One fringe tidbit? Some immigrants actually named their oxen after politicians they hated so they could cuss them out all day with impunity. You wish you'd thought of that. Afternoon brings more misery. The trail hits a shallow ravine. The animals balk at the descent. The wagons lurch dangerously. You're at the reins, screaming and pulling. Your partner shoves from behind. The oxen bellow like demons and finally surge forward. The entire wagon slams down the slope so hard you hear something crack. It's the axle. You stare at it for a full minute, stunned. Your partner starts to cry. You don't have a spare. You take stock. You might be able to patch it. You might not. Either way, you're losing time. The wagon master rides up, takes one look, and just sighs. You'll have to fix it here or lighten the load. You already lightened it back at the last river crossing. There's nothing left to dump except your children, and you're not that desperate. You work with numb fingers and borrowed tools until dusk. You carve a makeshift brace out of a log. It's ugly, but it holds. You don't eat much that night, because your animals are hungry too. Feed is running out. The grass is dying as you get higher, drier. You're already cutting the daily ration. The oxen are losing weight fast. Hip bones jut, eyes dull. You listen to one of them cough in the dark. Your partner asks if it's dying. You don't answer. You just roll over, pull the blanket tighter, because you don't know what you'll do if it does. Without them, you might as well dig your own grave now. Morning comes cold again. You struggle to yoke them. They don't want to move. Can you blame them? Your neighbor lost one overnight. It just didn't get up. He's dismantling his wagon now, redistributing what he can to the rest of the train, burning what's left. You help him, even though you can't afford to carry anything extra. Because you have to. Because you know it could be you tomorrow. Historians note how entire wagon trains cooperated to keep going, despite fights, despite theft, despite everything. Because they had no choice. You remind yourself of that as you heave another sack of grain onto your own creaking wagon, praying the patch on the axle holds. That night, you listen to the animals shift and grunt outside the circle. You hear wolves in the distance, their howls rising like sad music. You wonder if they're watching, waiting for one of your oxen to collapse. You grip your rifle tighter. Your partner is silent. Your children are asleep. You envy them their dreams. Because you know yours will be nightmares. Of broken axles, of stubborn oxen that won't move, of mules that bolt into the dark, dragging your hopes with them, of standing beside a dead animal in the dirt, wondering how you'll move your entire life without it. But you have to keep going. Because there's only one direction out here. You never thought you'd miss the endless flat prairie, but now that the land starts to heave and rise beneath your feet, you'd sell your soul to have it back. The first hint comes as a gentle slope, barely there. But your oxen feel it. They slow even more, if that's possible, and start breathing like blacksmith bellows. You try to coax them up the rise, but they're smarter than you think. They plant their hooves and give you the same look you've seen every day. Why are we even doing this? By mid-morning, the hills are serious. You're walking at an angle, leaning forward so far your back screams in protest. The wagons pitch and groan like ships in a storm. You find yourself pushing on the rear wheel with your shoulder, grunting, slipping in loose dirt while your partner slaps the oxen's rumps with the reins, cursing them in creative ways you didn't know they knew. Historians still argue whether the biggest hazard on the trail was disease or terrain. You're ready to argue for terrain, because you can't negotiate with a mountain. Midday. The sun burns overhead and you swear the trail is vertical. Your boots scrape for purchase. The oxen foam at the mouth. One collapses. You freeze, but after a minute, it struggles back up. You let out the breath you didn't know you were holding. You see the wagon ahead of you stuck halfway up a switchback. They're unloading it, hurling trunks and barrels into the dirt to lighten the load. Your partner glares at you. "We're not doing that," they hiss. You both know you probably will, because you don't have a choice. By late afternoon, you crest a ridge and look back. The land spreads behind you like an endless brown sea. You see the thin line of the wagon train, a trail of moving dots kicking up dust. It's almost beautiful. Then you look ahead. Mountains. Real ones this time. Dark, jagged teeth on the horizon, blocking your path like a warning. You swallow hard. Dinner is tense. No one's hungry, but everyone eats. Just to keep going. You chew hardtack until your jaw aches. Swish it down with smoky coffee that's mostly boiled dirt at this point. Your partner lays out the map. A scrap of paper so battered the rivers have bled into the mountains. "There's a pass," they whisper. "Yeah," you say, "somewhere." The wagon master joins you, squats by the fire. He traces the route with a stick in the dirt. "We'll make for the pass," he says. His voice is flat. He doesn't say if, he says when. One fringe tidbit: some emigrants hired local native guides for these crossings. They knew the land better than anyone. Sometimes they'd appear at dawn, trade for food or blankets, and lead the entire train through a maze of canyons like it was nothing. Other times, you were on your own. You're pretty sure you're on your own this time. You try to sleep, but the wind howls between the wagons. It sounds like voices. You think about what waits tomorrow. Steeper slopes, narrow trails that flirt with cliffs, riverbeds with hidden boulders. You wonder if you'll make it over. You wonder what you'll have to dump to do it. You wonder what you'll do if the animals give out. You drift off anyway, exhausted. Dreams of mountains chasing you. You're up before dawn. The entire train is grimly quiet. You don't bother with jokes. You eat a crust of bread while staring at the dark shapes of the peaks. You hitch up the oxen. They don't want to move. Neither do you. But you all do, because you have to. The first hill is brutal. You and your partner push. The kids run alongside, shouting encouragement that's half terror. Halfway up, the wagon tips dangerously. You throw your weight against it, screaming at the oxen. They strain. The yoke creaks. It rights itself. You're shaking with adrenaline. You keep going. By midday, you've made a mile, maybe two. You're unloading things now. Barrels of flour, crates of tools, blankets. You pile them by the trail. You want to cry, but you don't, because there's no time. You reload at the top. What you can. You leave the rest. Someone behind you starts grabbing what you left. You don't stop them. That's trail law. What's abandoned is fair game. You press on. The path narrows. It's barely wide enough for the wagon. You're walking on a knife edge. To the left, the land drops away in a sheer fall. You feel your stomach turn. Your partner walks ahead with a rope tied to the yoke, guiding the oxen slowly. One wrong move. You don't even want to think about it. But you have to. Because you're here. Because there's no going back. A wheel hits a rock. The wagon shudders. Your heart stops. Then it rolls forward. You let out a breath that shakes your whole body. By nightfall, you're still in the pass. You camp wherever the wagons can fit. There's no firewood. You eat cold food. You huddle together for warmth, listening to the wind scream through the canyon. You hear someone crying. You don't even know who it is. You pull your kids closer. Your partner leans into you. You both stare at the dark. Silent. Because you know tomorrow you'll have to keep climbing. Because there's only one way. Dawn cracks like an old door on rusted hinges. The wind is gone for now, replaced by an eerie, heavy silence. You wake with your face pressed into a damp blanket and your back screaming from the rocky ground. You didn't so much sleep as pass out. You ease yourself up, groaning at every pop of your spine. Your partner is already up, poking the cold ashes of last night's failed fire. There's no wood in this canyon. Nothing to burn except dried grass and the last precious buffalo chips you saved. They catch fire slowly, smoky, smelly. But you're grateful for even that. You try to cook something, anything. Flour and water becomes gluey lumps in a dented pan. No salt left. No fat. It sticks to your teeth like paste. Your kids eat it without complaint. That's the worst part. They don't even whine anymore. They've learned better. The wagon master calls everyone together. He doesn't waste time. We push hard today, he says. We have to clear this pass. No one argues, because no one wants to stay another night up here. You glance at the trail ahead. It snakes up and around the mountain like a drunken rattlesnake. You see sections where it's no wider than your wagon itself. Your stomach turns. Historians still argue whether most emigrants underestimated the terrain or simply didn't care, whether they believed they were prepared or just too desperate to worry about it. You know the truth. No one can really be ready for this. You yoke the oxen. They resist, eyes rolling. You don't blame them. They're half-starved, bones showing, hide covered in weeping sores from harness rub. Your partner tightens the yoke with trembling hands. You both know if one of them drops today, you're finished. The mules are even worse. One nearly kicks your kid in the head before you grab it. You start walking. Immediately, the wheels sink into loose scree. The entire wagon lurches. You brace yourself against the side, shoving with your shoulder. Your partner hauls at the reins, cursing. The oxen bellow in protest but move, inch by painful inch. Your boots slide on gravel. The sun climbs high and turns the canyon into an oven. You feel the sweat soak your shirt and run into your eyes. You don't dare stop, because if you do, you won't get moving again. By noon, you've gone maybe a mile. You unload again. You drop barrels, sacks, crates. You can't afford to carry it anymore. You want to cry, but you're too dehydrated. Your partner just stares at it all, silent. You promise yourself you'll come back for it. You both know you won't. One fringe tidbit? Some travelers recorded seeing entire piano frames abandoned in these passes, left to rot in the rain and snow, a monument to broken dreams. You push on. You hit a switchback so sharp you have to unyoke the animals and manhandle the wagon by hand. Your partner guides the wheels, cursing every god they know. Your oldest kid is at the oxen's heads, pulling their nose ring to keep them calm. You slip and land hard on your knee. Blood soaks your trousers. You ignore it. The wagon teeters at the turn. For one breathless second, you think it'll go over the edge. Your partner screams. You heave with everything you have left. It rights itself. Your vision goes black for a moment. When it clears, you're still alive. The wagon is still whole. You keep going. By late afternoon, you can see the top, but you're so tired, you feel hollow. Your mouth is dry as dust. Your oxen stumble with every step. Your partner is limping from a twisted ankle. Your kid is crying but keeps pulling the lead rope. You don't say anything. There's nothing to say. You just keep moving, because there's no other choice. You crest the pass at dusk. The view stops you cold. Rolling hills, green valleys, a river winding in silver below. For a second it's beautiful. Hope claws at your heart. Maybe this was worth it. But then you see the descent. Twice as steep, narrower, worse. Your partner swears softly. You both know you can't stop here. There's no water, no grass. You have to keep going. You have to get down. You camp on a tiny ledge. The wagons are lined up nose to tail like dominoes. No fire tonight, no dinner. You ration the last of the water, licking the cup to get every drop. You lie down on bare rock. You listen to the wind whistle through the pass like a warning. You hear oxen lowing in misery. You hear your partner breathing next to you, too shallow. Your kids whimper in their sleep. You stare at the stars overhead. You remember reading about them in school, safe and warm. You never imagined you'd see them like this. You feel small. You feel scared. You feel alone, even surrounded by your family. Because you know tomorrow you'll have to guide a ton of wood, iron, food, and hope down a path designed to kill you. Because you know the animals might quit. Because you know the brakes might fail. Because you know people die on these descents. But you close your eyes anyway. Because you're so tired you could die right here. You tell yourself you'll figure it out tomorrow. You don't know how, but you have to. Because there's no other way. Because the trail only goes one direction. The next day doesn't start with screams, but it might as well. The wind howls through the narrow pass, rattling the canvas on the wagons, making the oxen stamp and bellow in fear. You're up before dawn because sleep was a lie you told yourself last night. Your partner is already tying the kids' bedrolls tighter, making sure nothing falls off the narrow ledge. The fire won't light, so breakfast is stale bread you can't even soften in coffee. You stand at the edge of the trail, staring at the path that drops away like the devil's own slide. Your heart beats slow and hard in your chest. You spit into the dust because there's nothing else to do. But you have to go down. The wagon master gives a speech no one remembers. Just words. Slow, careful, one at a time. Everyone's too busy checking brakes, ropes, wheels. You lash everything tighter than you think is possible, but in your gut you know it won't be enough. You lead the oxen carefully, whispering nonsense you hope calms them. Your partner walks backward down the trail, pulling on the rope tied to the front axle to keep it from careening. The wagon creaks like a dying animal. The wheels scrape against boulders. Dust rises and chokes you, one step at a time. Every foot down feels like an argument with gravity. Halfway down, the oxen balk. They're done. You feel it in your bones. You beg them, voice cracking. Your partner's eyes are wide and wet with terror. The animals finally move. You don't dare look at the drop beside you. You keep your eyes on the rope, on the hooves of your animals, on your partner's shaking hands. One fringe tidbit? Emigrants sometimes cut down whole trees to drag behind their wagons as brakes on these slopes. You don't even have that option here. You make it to the bottom because you have to. You collapse on your knees in the dirt, sucking air like a drowning man. Your partner leans against the wagon, sobbing silently. Your kids are wide-eyed, pale. You tell them it's okay, it's a lie. But it's the only thing you can say. You keep moving. Because the terrain doesn't magically flatten after that descent. It rolls, up, down, over rocks that split wheels, through gullies that flood after every sudden storm. You see a wagon stuck in mud so deep the oxen are buried to their bellies. 10 men are pushing, cursing mud up to their armpits. You help, because you'd want them to help you. Dinner that night is beans so burnt they're black on the bottom of the pot. You eat it anyway. Around the fire, people try to laugh. A man tells a joke about the trail. You know how to tell if your oxen are alive? They curse you back. You smile weakly. Your partner snorts. The kids actually giggle. For a second, you all remember what it felt like to be human. Then the talk turns to what you all left behind. Back east. Real beds. Sunday dinners. Family you'll never see again. You stare at the flames until your eyes blur. Someone pulls out a fiddle. You'd forgotten he had it. The tune is slow and sad, an old hymn, Nearer My God to Thee. Your partner sings softly, voice cracking. You join in, even though you're tone deaf. The kids huddle close. It doesn't sound good, but it feels like something human. Historians note how emigrants kept music and religion alive on the trail like they were life preservers in a flood, because they were. Some nights, you're too tired to talk. You patch clothes by the light of the fire. You scrape dried mud from boots with a knife. You check the harnesses for wear. You whisper small prayers. Not fancy ones. Just please let us make it. Other nights you gamble, cards dealt on a trunk lid, pennies clink, someone cheats and gets called on it. Voices rise. Knives flash for a moment in firelight, but no one dies, because you all know there aren't enough of you left for that. One fringe tidbit. Preachers on the trail sometimes banned card games, calling them the devil's work. But the same men would bet on whose oxen would hold out longest. Hypocrisy is another thing that survives the crossing just fine. You watch it all. You don't judge. You're too tired. You just try to keep your family alive. At night, when the camp finally quiets, you lie back and stare at the stars. Your partner's head rests on your shoulder. The kids snore softly. You trace constellations you haven't seen since you were a kid. You think about how many people crossed this way before you. How many made it? How many didn't? You make a promise you're scared to speak aloud. You'll get them there. Even if it kills you, because there's only one choice on this trail. One direction you can go. You keep thinking the kids will break first. You'd expect it, wouldn't you? They're small, fragile, prone to tears and tantrums, even back home when you had beds and bread and neighbors close enough to hear you yelling. But out here they turn into little pioneers before your eyes. You watch your oldest tie their boots tight with twine because the leather's cracked and split. No complaints. just a grim little nod when you say, "That'll hold for now." The youngest doesn't even cry anymore when you pour half-rancid water into their tin cup and tell them to sip slow. They take tiny, careful gulps, eyes darting at the dwindling barrel. They know what it means to run out. Historians still argue whether children suffered more or adapted better on the trail. Journals describe them playing tag among the wagons in one breath, burying their baby brother the next. You know both are true. Your kids walk more miles than you ever thought possible. Their feet blister. Then the blisters pop and bleed. Then they harden into calluses so tough they could kick a cactus. You don't even have to tell them to keep up anymore. They know. Some days they herd the oxen, waving sticks, shouting in hoarse voices. They've learned to dodge kicks and horns. Other days they gather fuel. Not firewood. There isn't any. Buffalo chips. They used to gag, complaining about the smell. Now they argue about who found the biggest, driest ones. You remember your youngest beaming proudly, cradling a dried buffalo turd like a prize. You didn't have the heart to scold. You praised them instead. "Good job. That'll burn hot tonight." One fringe tidbit: some kids on the trail got so used to these chores they kept doing them for fun after they settled in Oregon. Strange what habits stick. But it's not all work. They play too. You hear them laughing sometimes, a sound so out of place in the desert heat it makes your heart hurt. They make dolls out of rags, spin stories about kings and dragons. They play tag between wagons, ignoring shouted warnings about rattlesnakes. They throw rocks at tin cans, aiming better than you ever could. They chase prairie dogs, squealing when one vanishes into a hole. They make up songs, terrible nonsense rhymes that loop endlessly until you threaten to send them to walk with the oxen. They laugh. Because they're kids? They don't know they're supposed to be broken yet. But you see it in their eyes sometimes. That moment they glance at a fresh grave by the road and fall quiet. That way they look at the last biscuit in the sack, and then at you before saying they're not hungry. Your partner notices too. You both try to shield them. But there's only so much you can do. You can't make the water barrel refill itself. You can't summon green grass for the oxen. You can't soften the rocky trail that tears boots apart and bloodies toes. So you teach them instead. How to patch clothes with crooked stitches, how to load a rifle, how to look for the brightest stars to tell north, how to clean a wound with whiskey that burns worse than the injury. You didn't want them to know these things yet, but you need them to. Because you don't know if you'll make it. One day, your oldest helps you dig a grave, not for your family. For your neighbor. You watch them heave dirt with a too big shovel, jaw set, eyes hard. You want to tell them to stop. But you can't finish alone, so you let them help. You pat their shoulder after. "Good work," you say. They nod. You both wipe your eyes when you think the other isn't looking. At night you lie together under the thin canvas of the wagon. They snuggle up, bony elbows poking you. They smell like sweat, dirt, smoke. You breathe them in anyway. Because they're alive. Because you're still together. Because that has to be enough. You tell them stories. About castles and knights. About ships on endless seas. About Oregon, rich and green with apples so big they'd take 2 hands to hold. Your partner rolls their eyes at your embellishments but doesn't stop you. Because it's the only way to keep the dream alive. Even for you. Especially for you. Sometimes your kids ask hard questions. Will we die too? You don't know how to answer. You want to say no. You want to lie so badly your tongue aches with it. But you see the fresh graves every day. You see the way your partner's ribs show. You see the way your oxen wheeze and stumble. So you say the only thing you can. We're going to keep going. Because it's true. It's the only truth you have left. You'll keep going. Because there's no choice. Because the trail only goes one way, forward. And you'll keep them moving. Because you have to. Because you're their parent. Because you're the only thing between them and the unmarked grave they don't even know to fear. You close your eyes at night and pray to a God you're not sure is listening. You ask for strong legs, for clear skies, for green grass for the animals, for enough water, for one more day without a fever. You don't ask for much, just one more day. Because out here, that's all you can plan for. One more day, and then the next. Until you see Oregon, until you make this hell worth it. Until you keep your promise, because that's the only direction you can go. If you think you're exhausted, take a look at the women on this trail. You see them at dawn, faces streaked with dirt and sweat before the sun even breaks the horizon. You listen to the sharp snap of their voices, corralling kids who won't wake up, who cry because they're hungry, who trip over roots and rocks, and sob until someone hushes them with shivering arms. She's the first one up, always. You see your partner rub bleary eyes and pull hair back with a strip of rag, ignoring the way the wind keeps whipping loose strands into her mouth. She's fumbling with damp buffalo chips for the fire, trying to get a spark to catch before the whole train is moving again. No time for pleasantries. No time for lingering coffee. Coffee that by now is mostly grounds boiled so many times the pot looks like it's been tarred inside. Breakfast is flour and water if you're lucky. Sometimes a strip of old bacon. She cooks it with one eye on the kids fighting over a ragged doll. She wipes noses on her sleeve. She yells when they wander too close to the oxen's hooves. She's not soft here. She doesn't have the luxury. You try to help. You really do. But there's harness to mend, animals to check, wheels to tighten, water barrels to refill. She does it all. And then you both walk, because riding is for the sick and the very young, and even they often end up trudging beside the wagon. Your partner manages to keep the little ones moving, with threats, bribes, and the promise of the next trading post, where maybe, just maybe, they'll get a piece of candy. Historians still argue about whether pioneer women were prepared for this. Some say they were tougher than the men. Others claim they were misled, forced, dragged along. You figure it was both. You've watched her scream in frustration over spilled flour, then calmly stitch a ripped shirt while her kid lies feverish on her lap. At camp, she doesn't rest. While you're checking the oxen for cracked hooves, she's patching the canvas cover with thread so precious you guard it like gold. She scrubs dishes with sand, wipes them with the edge of her skirt. She stirs the pot with one hand while wiping sweat with the other. She's the nurse when someone gets cut or burned or sick. She mixes old folk remedies, ties rags over wounds, boils water when you can spare the fuel. She's the midwife, too. You remember that one night, the screaming that didn't stop, your partner pushing everyone back, ordering men out of earshot, snapping at them to bring more water. You held your kids in the wagon, trying to muffle their ears, even though they heard every cry. The baby did come, but the mother didn't wake up after. Your partner didn't say a word when she came back. She just sat down by the dying fire, hands shaking. You handed her coffee, and she drank it in one long, grim swallow. You didn't ask anything. You both just watched the stars, wondering what they thought of all this misery. One fringe tidbit: some women brought actual washboards with them. They insisted on keeping clothes clean as long as possible. You imagine them on their knees by some muddy creek, scrubbing until their knuckles bled, cursing their own stubbornness, but too proud to quit. Your partner did the same, at least at first. Now she settles for beating shirts against rocks and letting the dirt stain stay. Because there's no time. There's never time. The trail keeps pushing. Today it's rocky. Tomorrow it'll be muddy. The day after it might snow, even though it's still September. You see her bending over the fire at night, hair loose, face lined in red glow. She's too tired to even blink sometimes. But she does blink. And she gets up. Because she has to. Because you both do. Your kids know to give her space when she's like this. They know the look. They sit close but silent. They watch her mend clothes with neat, tight stitches even though her fingers tremble. They see her ration the last of the salt, dividing it carefully like a priest at communion. They watch her take the smallest portion at dinner. You hate that. You try to give her yours. She glares until you give up. She says she'll eat tomorrow. You don't argue anymore, because you know tomorrow she'll say the same thing. One night you wake up and she's crying. Quiet, shaking sobs she's biting back. You pretend to sleep, because you don't know what to say, because you're crying too, just in a different way. You know she'll be up first in the morning, starting the fire, boiling that wretched coffee, waking the kids with false cheer, packing the wagon with hands so cracked they bleed. You love her more than you can say. You wish you could carry more of the load for her, but you can't, because there's only one way to Oregon, and it goes forward. You tell her that sometimes. She just nods, eyes on the horizon. She knows she's already moving, because she doesn't have a choice. None of you do, so you follow her, you all do, because she's the only thing holding this mess together, and you die before you let her know how scared you really are. You can feel it now, the end of the trail. Not because it's easy, God no, but because everything is running out. Your animals are gaunt specters of what they once were. Their ribs show under skin that cracks and flakes. They wheeze and cough and stumble over every rock and rut. You see them looking at you with eyes that seem to beg you to stop. Your partner runs a hand over one ox's flank, and you see it shiver under the touch. It used to lean into that contact. Now it just endures. You're all just enduring. You walk with your head down, boots dragging. Blisters are old news. They've hardened into tough pads of flesh. The soles are worn so thin you feel every pebble. The kids have stopped asking how far it is, because they know better. You tell them anyway. Not far now. Because that's the lie that keeps you all moving. Historians talk about morale on the trail like it was something you could measure, as if you could weigh it like flour. But you know better. Morale isn't a number. It's the difference between getting up and staying down. And yours is cracking, because the food is almost gone. That last barrel of flour you'd hoarded like a miser, the one you guarded so carefully, infested with bugs. You sifted it, cursing, killing as many as you could. But in the end, you just dumped it out onto the dirt. Your partner cried. Not for the bugs, for the waste. You told them you'd find more at the next fort. But there is no next fort. You passed the last one days ago. Prices there were so high you left with barely anything, watching the clerk smile with rotten teeth while you handed over your last coins for a sack of salt and a moldy ham. Now that ham is gone. You cut it so thin you could see light through it. Your kids learned not to ask for more. Your partner learned not to cry at dinner. You learned to chew slow and pretend you were full. One fringe tidbit? Some wagons carried barrels of bacon so rancid they had to scrape green mold off with knives. And they ate it anyway. You would too, if you still had any. You're down to beans that turn to black paste in the pot. Hardtack so hard you have to soak it for hours just to bite. You ration coffee grounds so many times the water is gray. You watch your kids drink it anyway, because it's warm, because it's something. And then there's the water. Rivers here are fewer, dirtier. You strain it through cloth, boil it when you can, but you see the scum floating on top. You see the worms. You drink it anyway, because you have to. You hear coughing in the wagon behind you, wet, rattling. You see the father's face when he turns away from you. You know he's thinking about the grave he'll have to dig. The graves you've all dug. You see them along the trail like mile markers. Simple wooden crosses, sometimes no name at all. Just a mound of earth, quickly thrown up before the train moves on, because you can't stop. Because you have to keep going. Your partner is quieter now. They don't yell at the kids. They don't argue with you. They just walk, one foot in front of the other, eyes on the ground. At night they sit by the dying fire, sewing clothes so patched they look like a drunk quilt. You tell them you love them. They don't answer, but they keep sewing, because they love you too. You know that. You all do. You just don't have the strength to say it anymore. The animals graze on grass so sparse you can count the blades. You catch them licking dew off rocks in the morning. You try not to think about what happens if they die. You see wagons with fewer animals each day. Families walking beside wagons with the covers sagging empty, wheels creaking under nothing at all. Because they had to eat everything to survive. You haven't done that yet. But you know, it's an option you don't say out loud. Historians debate how often it happened. You'd rather not think about it. But you do. Late at night when everyone's asleep. You do. You notice the mountains on the horizon now, closer every day. They're not the Rockies you conquered before. These are the Cascades. They mean Oregon. They mean the end. Your partner sees them too. Their eyes brighten for a second, then dull again, because it's still weeks away, because you still have to cross them, because you still have to survive them. You tell the kids about the green valleys waiting on the other side, about rivers full of fish, about trees taller than anything back home, about apples the size of your fist. You lie so well it almost sounds true. They smile, they ask questions, they dream, and you want to die for lying to them. But you can't stop, because the alternative is telling them the truth, that you might not make it, that even if you do, it won't be paradise. That Oregon is just more dirt you'll have to tame, more hunger you'll have to fight, that you might die there too. So you keep telling them stories, because it's the only way to keep them moving, and you keep walking, because there's only one choice. You see the mountains, you taste the dust, you hear the wheels creak, you smell the sweat and sickness and fear, you feel the weight of every mile behind you, and you keep going. Because there's no other way, because the trail only goes one direction. You see the valley long before you get there. That's the cruel joke. You crest the last ridge of hard, broken trail, and there it is below you, green as a promise. A river winding like silver ribbon through endless fields. Trees tall enough to make your neck ache when you crane to see the tops. Your kids gasp. Even your partner sucks in a shuddering breath and forgets to scold them for running to the edge of the overlook. You stand there with your hands on your hips, feeling your heart thump in your chest like you just remembered it can. You've dreamed of this for so long, it doesn't even seem real. You turn in a slow circle and see the wagon train stretched behind you, a line of battered, broken dreams on wheels. Covers shredded, animals little more than skeletons with harnesses. People you thought would never give up have fallen silent. They stand like statues, just staring at the green below, because they know you still have to get down there. The descent is worse than you imagined. The ground crumbles under your boots, sliding away in little avalanches of pebbles and dirt. The oxen balk at the angles. You can't even blame them. Your partner loops a rope around the axle and digs in heels to keep the wagon from careening. You're at the yoke with the oxen, shouting, pleading, cursing. You remember reading about the gentle slopes in some cheap guidebook you bought back east. You want to burn that book, if you hadn't already used it to start a fire weeks ago. One wheel shudders and skids sideways. Your heart stops. But it holds, barely. At the switchbacks you unload again. Flour sacks so thin they're nearly empty. Blankets so frayed they're more whole than fabric. Tools rusted from river crossings and storms. You leave half of it behind. Again. You don't even curse this time. You just keep going. Because you see the grass at the bottom. Green, thick, alive. Your animals see it too. Their pace actually picks up, even if they're shaking with every step. Your partner starts to sob. Not loud. Just little gasping noises they bite off in their throat. You don't stop them. You let them cry. Because they earned it. You all did. You camp on the last flat stretch before the valley proper. It's almost funny. The ground is soft enough to lie on without rocks digging into your ribs. There's wood to burn. Real wood. Not buffalo chips, not twisted roots, not the last bits of precious kindling you kept wrapped in oilcloth to stay dry. You make a fire so big you have to step back from the heat. You boil water without thinking about the fuel. Your partner cooks the last of the beans, but this time you eat them slowly, savoring them. Your kids fall asleep on your lap, warm for the first time in weeks. You look up at the stars, and they don't seem like cruel, mocking pinpricks anymore. They're just stars. You want to thank them, but you're too tired. The next morning you wake before dawn because you're so used to it your body won't let you sleep in. You sit by the coals of last night's fire and watch the sky lighten. Your partner joins you. They lean into your shoulder. No words, none needed. You both know what today is. Today you roll into the valley, but it's not a parade. It's a crawl. The animals are too tired to trot. Your kids are too quiet to sing. You don't bother shouting orders. You just go. Because you have to. Historians write about the joy of first seeing the Willamette Valley like it was a party. But you know better. Joy isn't loud here. It's a slow leak of relief you don't trust yet. It's a looseness in your chest you're afraid to breathe too deeply in case it goes away. You see other settlers already there. They watch you roll in with guarded faces. Some wave, some don't. You can't blame them. They know what you're bringing. More mouths, more claims, more competition for the same good land. You circle the wagons one last time, out of habit more than need. You set up a cook fire and boil water from the river without straining it through cloth because it's clear. Your partner laughs at that. A wet, broken sound that turns real by the end. You both sit on the ground and hold hands, fingers filthy, knuckles cracked and bleeding, but you hold tight because you made it. The kids run through grass so high it brushes their chins. They're whooping, screaming, falling over each other. Your partner lets them. No scolding, no caution, just laughter. You see someone from another wagon train you thought had turned back weeks ago. They're here too. They look as ragged as you. You nod at each other. No words, just the understanding. One fringe tidbit? Some settlers carved their names into trees near the riverbanks to prove they'd made it. You see a few. You think about doing it too. But you don't. Because you know you didn't come here to carve a name in a tree. You came here to live. To keep your promise. You look at your partner, at your kids, at your wagon that's more patched than wood. You think, we'll fix it. We'll fix everything. We'll plant. We'll build. We'll make something that lasts. And you know it won't be easy. That Oregon isn't a paradise waiting for you with open arms. It's just dirt. Good dirt. But dirt you'll have to break with sweat and blood. Your partner knows it too. They squeeze your hand harder. You both stand. Your kids scream that they're hungry. You promise them you'll eat soon, and you will. Because you're here. Because you made it. Because there's only one direction left to go now. Not forward. Not anymore. But down. Into the dirt. To put down roots. To make this place yours. Because that's what you fought for. What you bled for. What you lost so much to reach. You close your eyes and breathe. It smells like grain. Like hope. Like a promise you intend to keep. You thought the hard part was getting here. Turns out that was just the entrance exam. Your first days in the valley are a blur of disbelief. It's green, it's fertile, it's real. You can hardly wrap your head around it. For weeks, months even, you'd been chasing the idea of Oregon like it was some mythical promised land. And now you're standing in it. Dirt caked to your boots so thoroughly it might as well be your skin. Looking at land that actually grows things without you begging it to. But you don't get to just lie down in the grass and nap forever. There's land to claim. That's the first problem. You arrive thinking you'll just pick your spot, but everyone else had the same idea. The best plots are already spoken for. You see rough stakes in the ground with names carved in them. Fences made from whatever wood people could drag here. Rows of crops already sprouting in neatly plowed lines that make you want to scream. Your partner asks, voice low and cracked, "Where do we go?" You don't know. You don't want to admit it. You see other families having the same argument. Voices rising, men squaring off, fists balled. Someone yelling about a line that wasn't there yesterday. Historians still argue whether these disputes were civil or violent. Some say they were settled with words, others with gunshots. You're pretty sure both are true. You pick a patch no one seems ready to fight you for. Rocky, uneven. Trees so thick you'll have to cut them down one by one. Your partner looks at it with dull eyes. You force a smile. This'll do. They don't answer. They just drop the handle of the wagon and sit in the dirt. You sit next to them. Your kids chase bugs in the grass because to them, any place you stop is home. That night you make camp without circling the wagons for the first time in forever. It feels wrong, exposed, vulnerable. You can't even sleep at first. You lie awake listening for wolves, for strangers, for anything. But the wind only rustles the grass. Your partner curls up against you and you hold them tight. You wake before dawn and set to work. No rest, because the land won't clear itself. You find someone selling seed at 3 times what it's worth. You buy it anyway, because you have to. You watch your partner try to plant while you dig a crude well that collapses twice before holding water. Your oldest breaks down crying after dropping a bucket and spilling it all. You want to yell, but you don't. You just hug them and say, "We'll try again." Because what else is there? One fringe tidbit? Some immigrants turned around even after they arrived, convinced they'd made a mistake. They went all the way back east. You think about that sometimes. But you don't have the money. You don't have the animals. You don't have the strength. So you stay. You meet neighbors who are as worn as you. You trade. You argue. You help each other. You bury someone's child. You help raise someone's roof. You listen to your partner sing to the kids again for the first time in months. Their voice is rusty, but it's there. You eat cornmeal mush with wild greens they gathered. It's the best meal you've had in weeks. You watch the kids fall asleep on a pile of old blankets in a half-finished lean-to that leaks when it rains. You hear your partner whisper, "It's ours." And you believe it. Even with the ache in your bones. Even with the knowledge winter's coming. Even with nothing left in your pack but lint. Because you're here. Because you made it. You think about the graves on the trail. All the people who didn't make it. You remember them when you work the soil, your hands blistering and raw. You talk to them sometimes when no one's listening. Look, we made it. For you too. Historians will write about you one day. They'll tally you as a number. One of the hundreds of thousands who went west. They won't know your name unless you carve it in a tree. They won't know the smell of your partner's hair when you both hadn't bathed in weeks. They won't know the exact way your kids' feet sounded, slapping through the grass the first time they were allowed to just play. They won't know about the prayer you whispered while shoving another broken wheel back on. They won't know about the dreams you gave up on, or the ones you stubbornly kept. But you'll know. You'll know every inch of this dirt, because you paid for it, with blood, with sweat, with graves along the trail, with the look in your partner's eyes when they almost broke and you refused to let them. You'll make this patch of Oregon home. You'll fight for it. You'll bury loved ones in it. You'll watch your kids grow on it. You'll laugh and curse and cry over it. You'll die on it one day. But not yet. Not today. Today you get up. You tie your boots with twine. You hitch the last ox to the stump you need pulled. You hand your partner the saw. You smile even though you want to sob. You say, "One more day." Because that's how you do it. One day at a time. Because there's only one way left to go now. Now that you've made it through this long, dusty journey, let yourself slow down. Imagine you're lying in that final clearing, watching the smoke from a small campfire drift lazily into the twilight sky. Your partner is there beside you, head heavy on your shoulder, breathing even and calm for the first time in forever. The kids are sleeping soundly, wrapped in every blanket you own, safe at last. The wind isn't howling tonight. It's just a soft hush, a gentle reminder that the hardest miles are behind you. You take a breath. The air is cool but forgiving. You can smell damp earth, green things growing, a promise kept at last. Your eyelids grow heavy. You know there will be work tomorrow. There's always work. Fences to mend, soil to till, a home to build from nothing but willpower and worn hands. But that's tomorrow's worry. Tonight, you can close your eyes knowing you survived. You kept your promise. You made it to the valley. You let the last embers fade to coals. You lie back, your heartbeat slowing to match the quiet of the world around you. You whisper thanks for the road behind you, however cruel it was, because it brought you here. Sleep finds you at last. Deep. Dreamless. At peace. Shh, you're home. Sweet dreams.